I would like to introduce myself. My name is Father Anthony Nguyen. I'm a Redemptorist missionary. Some of you may not know who are the Redemptorist missionary, but you have heard a group of priests who dedicate themselves to go to different parishes almost every week to give parish mission retreat and also speak on behalf of the poor. Last week I was in Sacramento at the cathedral there in Plaza Sacrament. This week I'm here, but next week I will be in Gulfport, Mississippi. So that is the schedule of the missionary. And I'm here this morning on behalf of the Unbound to invite you to become a sponsor for the poor children and aging people who live in those 20 developing countries which the Unbound are involved now. On a Sunday morning, a mother called his son and tell the son, get out of bed and go to church on Sunday. The son refused to do it and asked mother, give me one good reason why I have to go to church on Sunday. The mother told his son, not only one good reason, son, but three. First, because I'm your mother, I tell you what to do and you do it immediately. Secondly, you are old enough, you are 40-some years old, you know you have to go to church on Sunday. But thirdly, and most importantly, you are the pastor of the church. You have to go and open the door for people to get in. I don't think we need anyone to remind us to be in church this morning because we are here in God's house. First, to listen to God's word, to open ourselves, to discover, continue to discover who God is at the present stage of our life, and later be nourished by the Eucharist so that we can be out and be great witness for Christ in loving one another. So my brothers and sisters, the reading of the liturgy of the word this morning, we just heard, will certainly help us to know that our God is a gracious and generous God who loves us beyond what we can imagine. In the first reading, God was the one who filled his people, his chosen people's life with food and comfort. He was the one who wiped away the tears from every face. Then in the Psalm 23rd, God is described as a good shepherd who will bring goodness and kindness to his chosen people. And in the gospel, God was described as a king who invited all people to the royal wedding banquet of his son. And this parable tells us there are three different groups of people. The first group is the one who initially accepted the invitation, but when the time came to honor the invitation, they drew back. The first group of guests might have a various reasons for not coming to the banquet prepared for them. But then we can ask, has the king not given them the notice for the banquet in advance? And what is so important than that they should skip the banquet of the king for something else? Second type of guest was the one who attended the banquet without wearing the wedding garments. Let us remember it was the custom for hosts at wedding feasts to provide wedding garments at the door for invited guests who were too poor to dress up. And with his service, everyone came into the banquet hall could have a fine wedding garment. So there was no excuse for anyone not to wear wedding garment into the wedding banquet. The man not wearing a wedding garment simply couldn't be bothered, or else was deliberately insulting the host, as well as the newly married couple. And finally, there are the guests who attend the wedding banquet, taking care to appear in the proper wedding garments. They are the only ones who have fun and enjoy the feast. They are the models whose example we should follow in our Christian lives. So my brothers and sisters, today's gospel certainly sends us an important message that those who are keeping away from the Lord's Supper, from the kingdom of God, that they are missing out on the joy of life. To those of us who have accepted the invitation to come in, this parable wants us not to take God's grace for granted, but to clean ourselves up and become the most beautiful people that we can be in the sight of God. And in order to become beautiful people, St. Paul in the second reading repeatedly asks us to put on Christ, clothing ourselves in Him. It all has to do with clothing ourselves, clothing our heart and soul with the attitude of Christ toward others during His time. Clothing ourselves with His respect and love, with His generosity and mercy, kindness and forgiveness toward others. Talking about caring for others, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce to you the work of the Unbound. The Unbound was founded in 1981 by a group of lay Catholics who live in Kansas City, Kansas. With their great efforts and commitment during the last 36 years, they have provided basic necessities like food, clothing, education, and medical care for more than 300,000 children, youth, and aging people who live in those 20 developing countries. Because of the work condition in those countries, because of the violence and also the lack of knowledge in technology, many poor families who live in those countries keep getting poorer. Many jobless people desperate for works. Many hungry people, including children, don't have enough food to eat every day. I have the picture of Maureen, a 5-year-old girl who was born in Uganda. The father left home since the time she was born. A single mother, her mother, working in the farm as a farming worker, and also selling vegetable in the public market on the weekend. But her income is not steady to support the family, even only 3 person, a single mother with the 2 children. This is the reason why the Unbound would like to invite you to become sponsor to those children like Maureen. Not only bring her the better education, but also bring the hope to her life. And I think many of you sitting in the pew already are sponsor, and you know the benefit to become sponsor. You accept someone into your life, not only giving them money. How much? It's more than $1 a day, $36 a month. And for how long? I would suggest for a year, because during this year you will receive letter directly from the children or also from the family at least twice a year, at the Easter season and also at the Christmas seasons. Last November, 10 of us, 10 priests, we went to Costa Rica to visit the places where the Unbound are helping the poor. The first place we went to visit was an orphanage where the 8 religious local sisters and a group of volunteers have been taking care of the around 35 orphan children but born with disability. The story was during their pregnancies, many young mothers found out that their future baby will be born with disability. And many of them thought about having abortion. But with the promise of the local religious sister and the volunteer there, they will take care of their children until they die. So many young mothers changed their minds and gave birth. And the local doctor examined those children, and many of them, the doctor said, only live 6 months to a year. But when we came to visit that orphanage, the Mother Superior introduced us a group of children. They're still alive in that teenager. And miracle happen every day to the love of the caregiver and also from the children to the caregiver. And one of the mothers asked me this, to go back to the state and tell you this. Father, would you tell our sponsor they are not only our heroes because you bring hope, to their children. But also you like the star of Bethlehem to lead them to meet Christ in their daily life, because living under a severe poverty is not easy to accept and to recognize Christ's presence in their life. At the end of this Mass, I would like to invite you, don't rush home, but let us recognize Christ in the face of the children and aging people. Because our Holy Father, Pope Francis, I remember in one World Youth Day, he asked the youth, children, my children, pray for more saints in this 21st century, the saints who love the Eucharist, because in the Eucharist you will recognize the presence of Christ. But pray for more saints, the saints who love the poor, because in the poor you are easier to recognize different faces of Christ in our lives, where you will recognize the face of Christ in the poor children and aging people who live in the 11 countries. On behalf of the poor children and aging people who live in Mexico, in Guatemala, in Peru, in Honduras, in Colombia, in Ecuador, in El Salvador, in Costa Rica, in Uganda, in India, in Kenya, in Haiti, and in Philippines, and many more countries. I'm very grateful for your prayer for the poor. But let us become the sponsor, become the one who welcomes the poor into our life. Amen.